New this week from Massive Publishing, Zorro, Man of the Dead, script and art by Sean Gordon Murphy. Sean Murphy is not a newcomer to the comic book world. He's blessed us with a lot of amazing books over the years. He had his first big independent release in 2005, Off-Road, but I'd say that he's most known for the Murphyverse, which in the DC universe starts with Batman the White Knight, which I have a copy of, and I let a friend borrow it like a year ago, and he has not given it back. But that followed up with Batman Curse of the White Knight, and then this last year he did Batman Beyond the White Knight, and then his wife, Katana Collins, who's an amazing comic book writer herself, did a little offshoot series, Harley Quinn, which is criminally underrated. I think you should check it out. If you haven't checked out the Murphyverse, you absolutely need to. It's some of the best Batman out there. He draws from a lot of different Batman canon, but most notably, I like to tell people from the Batman animated series that I think a lot of us grew up with, and of course, Batman Beyond the animated series. At the end of Batman Beyond the White Knight, he teased some Justice League integration in the next installment. So that's going to be really exciting. We all thought that that's what was coming next, but he surprised us again by announcing that he had acquired the rights to Zorro, which is a little left field, but it's Sean Murphy. I'm going to read it. Just a quick sidebar about how I want to structure these reviews. I'm going to start with a spoiler-free section and then move on to a spoiler section. They'll be clearly marked as to when it happens, so if you don't want spoilers, then you can end the video early, but if you do, you want to hear the full review, then stick around. So I should preface the Zorro review with a few things. I am a Sean Murphy fanboy. He signed it. And I do have some familiarity with the character of Zorro. I was a fan of that Martin Campbell movie with Antonio Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones, The Mask of Zorro. When I was a kid, I watched that movie so many times. Also, just a tangent, did you know that Martin Campbell also directed Casino Royale? All this to say, as a fan of Zorro and Sean Murphy, I had a lot of expectations going into this first issue, and I was not disappointed. But even if you're completely uninitiated, I think this issue will still hook you. We're immediately thrown into the action in the first page of this comic, which I think is something that you want from an adventure series. And Sean Murphy's art is always so dynamic, and his action sequences are always so varied and interesting and unique, and the scale of his pages is always epic. All of these elements combine to make a really memorable first issue and a really fresh take on Zorro as a character. This is Zorro as a symbol of revolution and less about the historicism of Zorro as a man. Okay, we have now reached spoiler territory. This is a story that only Sean Murphy could tell. We start with a sword fight with Zorro that turns out to be a reenactment of a sword fight with Zorro that turns into a confrontational scene, and then a 20-year time jump, all in the span of just a few pages. And I think it's really effective what Sean Murphy's doing in this first issue. We're looking at the broader picture of La Vega, the town, the heart of Zorro, the place that he is protecting. And there's some topical elements of the cartel coming into town and collecting poppy that the villagers are unwillingly growing. And there's lots of memorable images and moments in this issue, but can we talk about the bloody hand of the child dripping onto the mark of Zorro on the church, and then the time jump 20 years later and we see the dried blood still on the mark of Zorro because nobody has bothered to touch it, has wanted to touch it. I mean, that's an image that only Sean Murphy would think of. It's amazing. And while there are modern elements to the story, I think that Sean Murphy's infusing a lot of classic things as well. We have the daughter of the killed Zorro reenactor meeting with a priest, which is a very classic Zorro setting. And then we have the son who has taken this heroic vow of silence. It also seems like Zorro is getting a fresh new take in this first issue in those final moments as the mentor gives the sword of Zorro to Diego, and it seems as if he's possessed by the spirit of Zorro rather than choosing to take upon the mantle. But yeah, I really have nothing bad to say about it. It's a really good first issue. It's evocative, the art's amazing, the scripting's amazing, and I cannot wait for issue number 2. Another really cool thing in this issue is that there's a preview for Sean Murphy's other independent work, which I had missed announcements about, a book called Plot Holes, which seems to be a magical character ensemble piece where an organization is saving doomed stories. I mean, what's not to love about that? Honestly, it kind of reminds me of Crossover, that Donny Cates series that came out a few years ago. So if you're a fan of that, then maybe you'll be a fan of Plot Holes. Just wanted to highlight that preview because it means we're getting more Sean Murphy titles this year. I, for one, am ecstatic. Thanks for watching that review, and please support your local comic book store and do yourself a favor and pick up Zorro, Man of the Dead, Issue 1.